Hey guys, welcome to another Friday Fudge Up, the weekly series where we show you some of the most common things that we mess up on a regular basis, how to avoid messing them up, and what to do if you do. So this week we're talking about lower arches. Now, a lower arch is part of the nail that is part of both an acrylic nail and a natural nail, and it's this line here. So if none of these nails have been filed, but it is this line here that shoots out. So to see it, you do need to turn your client on their side. A lot of people I see trying to see a lower arch from the top view and getting it confused with the side walls. But a lower arch is this underside. And with the lower arches of your nails, you want them to come straight out from the natural nail's widest point. So on Sam here, the widest point is here. This is one of the nails that I have sculpted properly, and you want to file straight out so that that line comes straight out from the widest point and looks like it could have grown. Now, a couple of common mistakes that are made is when someone over sculpts and has too much product, they kind of shape for what they have there, like they don't shape at the correct angle. And what we have here, by comparison, if this lower arch is straight, this one is heading down too far. So I see quite commonly that people have just sort of straightened what they've made. But if what they've made is on an angle, you just get a prettier angle. You don't actually get a good lower arch. So what you want to do if you have over sculpted is start filing at the same angle as the natural nail. So we know that the natural nail is here and we want the lower arch to end up at that same angle. So you follow it outwards and you file at this angle. So you're not trying to match the nail at all. You are trying to match what you want to be there later. Be really careful when doing lower arch filing just because you are so close to the skin. If you've got quite a lot to do, you might choose to go back and forward like I'm doing now. But generally, you'll only need to do a couple of careful strokes like I did on this first one. I just slowly and carefully tidied that up. So with this one, because I over applied, I'm bringing it all the way back. And I can use a manicure brush to be able to see what I'm doing, but I'm bringing it all the way back to the point that it is straight and growing straight out from where it would naturally. Now, the lower arch is very different from the sidewall, so my sidewall will still need correcting as well, but my lower arch is much better than it was. Now, another mistake people make is not sculpting far enough. So on this one, I tried to make it bad. It wasn't quite, it's not as exaggerated as I would have liked, but the widest part of the nail is out here and you can see a hole. There's a gap between where my file is, which is where I want my nail to be, and where the actual acrylic is. So what happens here is a lot of people then try and straighten that up. And again, they're following the angle of what they created, not of what is there. And you finish up with an even bigger gap. Now, I refer to this as filing your lower arch out, and it has a detrimental impact on the strength of your nail. You want a nice C-curve sitting in here, so this curve here, you want a decent curve. And when you file your lower arches out, you are also filing out half of your curve. So even if you had a nice curve to start with, you file out the bottom of it and suddenly your nail's really flat. And that does make it weaker. It makes it a lot more likely to break. Another way that people accidentally get rid of their lower arches is again from applying too wide, but then focusing on sidewalls. And of course you do want to file in your sidewalls, but if you have applied too wide and then you file in your sidewall, a lot of people still kind of leave them a bit too wide. But if we file it in to the point that it looks nice and skinny, so we now have, at least on this side of the nail, from the top view, the sidewall is nice and straight, the nail will end up nice and skinny, but by getting the sidewall perfect, we have now lost the lower arch. So again, we have this gap here where we didn't, because it was over applied. We definitely didn't have a gap here before, but in trying to get the sidewall, we now have a gap. So there are a couple of ways to avoid these mistakes. What you want to do if you are sculpting with forms, make sure that your forms are nice and curved when they go on. If you don't have a curve, or if the nail plate is quite flat like Sam's are, you need to make sure that instead of, you still want the end of the form nice and open like this. You never want it sort of squashed up, but when you have a flat nail plate or a really wide nail plate that you need to manage for the lower arches, you can work in slightly more of a teardrop, so you still keep that whole area open. It's not been squeezed shut like I see a lot of people do by accident, but you're working in more of a teardrop so that this whole shape becomes slimmer and the sidewalls go down. You get a sharper curve. If your form is too wide and flat, then you will end up with wide application, and to file it off will take away your lower arch. Another thing that you can do is when you have sculpted, you can pinch the free edge. Now I want you to be really careful about pinching, because any further back than the hyponychium, the line where the nail plate joins the nail bed, any pinching further back is A, unnecessary, but B, can be really damaging. You can end up, if you do it incorrectly, popping the nail plate off the nail bed, which is obviously going to hurt. It's going to put the client at massive risk of infection, and we don't want any of that. Pinching is for the free edge only. You put your nails side on to the nail and you roll. So instead of pushing straight in, which will cause the lifting and that potential popping, then you roll, and you're just wanting to curve the free edge so that that wide part where the nail was wide to start with is now curved down and around. So you want to basically sculpt your sidewalls into place to where they have a little bit of tidying up to do, but you don't lose the lower arch by tidying them up. You actually keep both a straight sidewall and a solid lower arch. So those are a couple of tips in terms of sculpting on how you can keep the lower arches there. But if you lose a lower arch, it's just as important to also put it back. So if you realize that you have filed out a lower arch, then what you need to do is during your filing, you want to thin out this area as much as you can. So you want it to kind of taper down from full thickness on this side, remembering these nails haven't been filed at all, to becoming a paper thin thickness at the edge. So I'm going through and making sure that it tapers from full thickness to paper thin. When I have that consistency, and I don't have it perfect on this nail for this video, but you know what I mean, where it's thick and then coming to paper thin, at that point I will get another form. Even if I've finished my application, I'll place that form under to match the nail I've created. And then I will re-sculpt this area, placing a bead in the side where the lower arch is missing and pulling it sideways into the existing product. So where I've tapered it, I can pull it in so that the entire area ends up at the correct thickness. That's what the taper was there for, so that I would have a thin area at the side and gradually pull it into the rest of the product. So you brush sideways into the existing product, you watch carefully at the natural widest point, and you build in that perfect lower arch. It's important that you take time to do this if you accidentally file out or don't sculpt the lower arch, because like I said before, you get a massive amount of strength from having correct lower arches and correct C-curves in your work. An easy way of understanding the importance of the curve is if you take a piece of paper and you bang it on a table, it will collapse constantly. If you put a curve into that piece of paper and you hold the curve, then when you bang it on a table, it's a lot stronger. So it's important for us that our nails have curves, and that includes keeping the lower arch and a C curve and getting those things through correct form application and correct sculpting, not through forcing a pinch or keeping our nails too wide. Okay, so head to the comments and let me know what you would like to see next as a Friday fudge up, and I'll be back with another video next week.